Aberdeen, New South Wales, a name that once evoked images of quiet streets. Tree-lined avenues whispered secrets to the wind. Nestled in the Hunter region, it was a small town where people knew their neighbours. Life moved at a slower pace here. Children played in parks until dusk called them home. The air itself seemed to breathe tranquility. This was a place where doors were often left unlocked. Trust was a common currency, freely exchanged among its hard-working residents. The rhythm of life in Aberdeen was predictable, comforting. Mornings began with the scent of dew on freshly cut grass, and the local bakery filled the air with the aroma of warm bread. Shopkeepers greeted customers by name. Evenings were for family dinners and quiet conversations on front porches. There was a profound sense of safety, an unspoken belief that nothing truly terrible could happen here. Yet beneath this placid surface, an unimaginable horror was taking root. It grew silently, unseen by the unsuspecting townsfolk. The contrast between the town's peaceful demeanour and the violence to come would be stark. Aberdeen was on the precipice of an event that would forever stain its serene image. The story of Katherine Knight would become a horrifying testament to the darkness that can exist even in the most idyllic settings. Katherine Knight was a known figure in Aberdeen. She moved among the townsfolk, a seemingly ordinary woman. Many saw her as a hard-working mother, dedicated to her children. She had a job, a routine, a place within the small community's fabric. This visibility, this apparent normalcy, made the later revelations all the more disturbing. Her employment was at the local abattoir. Knight was the first woman to work there, a detail that perhaps lent her an air of resilience. Her colleagues saw her skill with knives, her familiarity with the process of slaughter and butchery. This expertise, viewed then as a professional asset, would later take on a horrifying new significance. The Katherine Knight, known to her partners and, tragically, to John Price, was a stark contrast to the diligent abattoir worker. Behind closed doors, a different persona emerged, one capable of terrifying rage and calculated cruelty. While her work colleagues saw a competent employee, Katherine Knight's private life told a far more sinister story. Her romantic relationships were battlegrounds, consistently marred by extreme violence, chilling threats, and a terrifyingly volatile temper. Each relationship seemed to follow a grim trajectory, escalating in intensity and brutality. The accounts from her former partners painted a disturbing portrait. One of the most shocking incidents involved her first husband. On their wedding night, Knight allegedly attempted to strangle him. She had also reportedly abandoned her newborn daughter on a railway line. These were not mere lovers' quarrels, they were serious, life-threatening acts of violence and cruelty. Her temper was legendary among those who had been close to her. Partners recounted living in constant fear, never knowing what might trigger an outburst of rage. This history revealed an individual who was not just troubled, but profoundly dangerous. John Charles Price was a man known and liked in Aberdeen. He was a father of 3 children from a previous relationship, a hard-working miner who contributed to the local community. Friends described him as a decent, ordinary bloke. He had a life, a family, and a network of people who cared about him. His path crossed with Katherine Knight's, a connection that would ultimately prove to be a death sentence. Their relationship began with promise, or at least the appearance of normalcy. Perhaps there was an initial period of calm before the underlying tensions began to surface. The storm clouds were gathering, slowly but surely, over John Price's home. As the relationship progressed, those close to John Price began to notice changes in him. He became more withdrawn, less like his usual self. Whispers of domestic disputes began to circulate. The most alarming development was Price's own growing fear of Katherine Knight. He reportedly told friends, "She's going to kill me, and I'm going to be the first bugger to be killed by her." In the days and weeks immediately preceding the unspeakable act, John Price's fear reached a fever pitch. He was a man living on the edge, acutely aware of the danger he was in. He shared his fears more openly with his workmates, telling them that if he ever went missing, Knight would be responsible. He even took out an apprehended violence order, AVO, against her. A particularly violent argument in February 2000 served as a stark and terrifying escalation. During this confrontation, Knight chased Price through their house, brandishing a butcher's knife. Despite the AVO and his attempts to distance himself, Price seemed unable to fully escape Knight's orbit. The sense of impending doom must have been overwhelming for Price, a constant shadow hanging over his every waking moment. The horror finally erupted on the night of February 29th, or in the early hours of March 1st, 2000. Inside John Price's small home on St. Albans Street, Katherine Knight unleashed a frenzy of violence. John Price was stabbed at least 37 times, many of the wounds inflicted after he was already dead. The attack was ferocious, brutal, and sustained. The sheer number of stab wounds spoke of an uncontrollable rage, but the murder itself, however savage, was only the beginning of the nightmare. Drawing on her years of experience at the abattoir, she meticulously skinned John Price's body. The skin was removed with such precision that it formed a single intact pelt. She then hung this gruesome trophy from a meat hook on the architrave of a lounge room doorway. Knight decapitated Price. His severed head was later discovered by police, boiled in a large pot on the stove with vegetables simmering alongside it. She had also carved portions from his buttocks. Knight cooked parts of John Price's body with vegetables and gravy. Beside each plate, she placed a handwritten note bearing the name of one of John Price's adult children. The discovery of John Price's mutilated body sent shockwaves through Aberdeen and across Australia. Police arrived at a scene of almost unimaginable carnage. Katherine Knight herself was found inside the house in a semi-conscious state, having apparently taken a combination of prescription medication after her horrific deeds. She was arrested at the scene, bringing an end to her gruesome rampage. During her trial, Katherine Knight showed no remorse for her actions. The evidence against her was overwhelming, horrific, and undeniable. The prosecution painted a picture of a calculated, cruel, and vengeful woman. The jury returned a swift, guilty verdict for murder. In November 2001, Justice Barry O'Keefe delivered a sentence that made legal history in Australia. Katherine Knight was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. She became the first woman in the nation to receive such a sentence. Justice O'Keefe described the murder as an appalling crime, almost beyond contemplation in a civilized society. The impact on the small town of Aberdeen was profound and lasting. John Price's friends and family were left to grieve an unimaginable loss. Katherine Knight's horrific actions ensured that her name and the quiet town of Aberdeen would forever be linked to one of the most disturbing crimes in Australian history.